Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Founders Tales. I'm delighted to be joined today by Meghan Joyce, who is the CEO of Duckbill. Welcome, Meghan. Great to have you on. Do you want to just give everybody an introduction to yourself and Duckbill?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So Duckbill is the execution infrastructure for offline tasks. It allows your AI or your automated systems to hand complex tasks into the real physical world and be executed by a combination of humans and AI for where technology fails, or frankly, for where the real world fails. My background is building at the intersection of tech and humans. So I was an executive at Uber for many years, then Oscar Health. I sit on the board of a couple companies who build at the intersection of technology and humans. And it is such a privilege and a pleasure to be building in this space right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was the problem that first sparked the idea for Duckbill?
This was a problem that I had lived very personally for a very long time. So it first started when I was an executive at Uber, and I was spending my days using technology to democratize access to something that we felt was an essential service, transportation around your city, and frankly, create work for a whole lot of people while we were at it. And I would be at work however many hours a week, loving this business that I was building. And then I would come home late at night and be spending these like wee hours of the morning trying to figure out how to also make my life work alongside this career that I was building. And I frankly would have preferred to be doing anything else in the world, not just, sleeping or continuing to build this business. But I found myself using all this spare time and energy doing things like booking doctor's appointments or trying to figure out how to get an e-commerce delivery returned after the 30-day window, or booking travel for an upcoming trip and not losing or spending an arm and a leg. And I thought to myself, isn't there an opportunity to use technology to democratize access to health in the same way that I'm doing at Uber, or later at Oscar when we were using technology and humans to democratize access to world-class healthcare? But I couldn't figure out what the technology wedge would be that would allow us to offer really excellent quality health at scale. It had to be excellent. It had to be able to scale. And a lot of people had tried this and failed because, frankly, I don't think the technology existed before Gen AI was readily available. And when it came readily available, I was actually using some early versions of AI at Oscar when I thought, I think this is the technology to crack open this category. So I started tinkering with it. We were getting enough green shoots that I decided now's the moment. And what we realized is that the solution here is really that execution infrastructure that allows AI to do what AI is so good at, but then reliably and scalably hand a complex task to a human to triage it, make a market for it, route it, and then quality control it to make sure that that long tail of things that really does still need humans in the loop is done in a really high quality, efficient way.
Yep, makes sense. And we've been building Duckbill for a while now. So how does the MVP look today versus initially?
It is almost unrecognizable, as I'm sure most founders you talk to would say. I think that's the beauty of an MVP. And frankly, every iteration of what we build, we start with some version of an MVP. When you're building something that has never existed before, when you're creating a category, you don't know how real world customers, real world suppliers or partners or users are going to respond to this new technology. And so you can spend months building something, but if the real world doesn't react well to it, you've wasted all that time and effort and energy. And so I would much rather put something lightweight that actually gives us a legitimate bit of feedback out into the world, and then we can always build on it. So that's really where we went from our initial MVP, which was a couple humans in the loop with some very, very, very thin tech to say, what are the types of tasks that people want to use this for? And what is the kind of technology that it's going to take to improve human outcomes? Not just from an efficiency perspective, but first and foremost from a quality perspective. And what we learned was that the most important work that technology could do was actually in that flywheel of taking the unstructured tasks and boiling them down into discrete, simple, quality controllable actions that relatively, unskilled, and I don't mean that pejoratively, but like people who have not been working as executive assistants or healthcare navigators or travel agents for decades could do really well. And then driving the right market making and quality control around it so that we pay enough to make it worth that person's while, and not too much that we're going to break the bank. We still have a demand for it, and that it's done really well. And, to the extent that AI can do more and more of this, like that's amazing. We take automation off the shelf and insert it every day. One of the most exciting pieces of what we're building is that it's optimizing for an ever evolving execution frontier, but we still do need those humans in the loop for 99% of tasks. And so really building a system that can optimize for doing that in a market-made, high-quality way is really the entire game for us.
Yeah. And what have you learned from building Duckbill that you didn't know prior to starting the company?
When we first got started, it was also earlier in the development of AI, but I thought that AI would be really good at the rote, repeatable actions and would be less good at taste-oriented things. So we did some experiments early on where we found people who were, concierges at Four Seasons hotels or personal shoppers that work with the very stylish among us. And we said, how about you do things like help find wardrobes or activities for a trip, things like that. And what we actually found is that no matter how wonderful those people's taste is, or, on paper, how credentialed they are to offer taste-based recommendations, individual taste is so specific that it's actually about assessing what constitutes good taste from that person and cataloging it, remembering it, reflecting it. And so some combination of AI, like the customer, and AI kind of discovery, and then potentially humans in the loop is actually the best combination where humans alone would not have been good at that. And then similarly, in the way that we thought AI would be good at some of these, like, automated things, like, call the doctor's office and book an appointment. First, I think the reliability of the tech has not been as robust as I think many of us expected. Although it is wildly powerful, it is a non-deterministic system. And so it does have errors in it. With some amount of frequency. And then even when it's very reliable, the real world is unreliable. So the minute you call a doctor's office and say, you're on an AI recorded line, a lot of those receptionists hang up. And actually finding ways to be effective in that environment where the real world is not set up for AI automation is, I think, a huge opportunity for humans.
Yeah, fantastic. And moving on to building the business, how did you convince your first investor to believe in the vision and the mission that you had?
I think the most important thing that my investors invested in, and I realize this in retrospect, is the idea that we would run through walls to get it done. Because, especially this moment in time where the landscape is changing so fast, but even outside of this moment in time, in any startup, in any building environment, you're going to shift 1,000 times. Automation is going to be less capable in some ways and more capable in other ways. The competitive landscape is going to change. Consumer behavior is going to not meet expectations in some areas and exceed expectations in others. And so, I think the most important thing that I have learned that in retrospect, my investors were actually investing in is the willingness to solve any problem. Because really, truly, any problem can be solved. Might not be worth your time, or you might not find it interesting to go solve it. But if you have that fire, that hunger to solve this problem for the world, you can often find a way through any wall. And I think it was really feeling that passion and that determination that was what compelled our investors to feel really excited to invest in myself and the team.
Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way.
That's right.
And having built out the team and teams within the business, any advice that you might pass on to other founders who are going through an early build phase of their project?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, nothing can replace or compare to pure passion for what you're building. And I think, having a mission about why you're building is really helpful, not only from a product perspective, because it helps you orient around the customer rather than any one technology or way of solving the problem. But if you find people who are also passionate about that mission, they too will run through walls. They will have the will to find the way. And you can often teach people the skills they need to learn. You can't teach that hunger. And I think screening for that in your hiring process is, from my perspective, mission number one. And then I think secondly, it never ceases to amaze me how fast the needs of the business change in a high growth organization. And so I think creating an environment where feedback is just part of the culture and comes in every meeting and is not a point of personal offense, but is just us all learning from each other is so valuable, because it allows us to have a chance at evolving and growing and developing ourselves to meet the moment of the business as quickly as that moment may be changing. And inevitably, we will have to move people on. We will need new skills on the team. We will have people who won't keep up with that pace of growth or change in what the business needs. And I think that's the hardest part of managing a team, but it is inevitable, and it's not your fault. It's because that's how these things go. And I think it's always an opportunity to find not only the right person for your team, but also a place for that person on the other side of the table where they can be successful.
Yep. And in terms of creating that culture of feedback, are there any particular practical tools, tips that you've kind of embedded, utilized to help with that?
My favorite is a company value of ours, which is high standards, high support. We talk about this from the day you are hired, and frankly, the interview process, even before you're hired, where, part of our culture is that we will hold you and we want you to hold us to the highest of high standards. We know we're not going to change the world until we have really big goals, and we are all striving for excellence every day. And holding each other accountable to delivering on that. At the same time, I'm doing it in a way that gives you support. It's an arm around your shoulder. It's saying, we're in this together. And I know it's really hard and it's not always going to work perfectly, and I'm by your side. And I'm giving you this feedback because I know you're capable of it. And I know we all want to win together. And so often when I'm about to give really hard direct feedback, I preface it with, in the spirit of high standards, high support, I know you're all capable of this. We need to take another turn because it's not there yet. And I think having that kind of mantra and reminder and expectation that you are going to get feedback. I hope you give me feedback where you feel like we are not consistently delivering on excellence. And I'm doing it because I care, because I know we all want to win, and because I know you're capable of delivering something that is truly game changing. And we're going to give each other whatever feedback we need to get there.
It must have been great when you started to get that feedback coming your way as well.
It's honestly amazing because,
Yeah.
you know, there's a reason business is a team sport. Amazing ideas come from all over the place, and especially some of my frontline engineers or my frontline operators who are dealing with customers all the time, or from our customers themselves, and having an environment where they're willing to tell you the hard thing, and where they're willing to say like, hey, there's this new thing out there we should be trying or considering, or here's the unexpected use case I actually want to be using you for. Those are the nuggets of gold as you're kind of sifting through the mess of early stage building.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know the Duckbill offices are based elsewhere, but you're in Boston. So over the years, if you look at the Boston startup ecosystem, have there been any particular mentors, resources, meetups that have been beneficial for you personally?
I care deeply about the Boston startup ecosystem as someone who has grown up in this environment and been building in this environment since even before Duckbill. So my first job at Uber was the Uber general manager, and then I hired people here when I was at Oscar, and same with Duckbill. This is my home, and I think it's been one of these places that's kind of had a stealthily successful startup environment, but hasn't always been loud and proud about it. And frankly, I think the loudness and proudness is part of what draws people to other markets like San Francisco and New York, that there is more robust a scene. But I want to give a huge amount of credit to a guy named Brian Durkin, who himself has been working in startups for a long time in Boston, Wayfair and Whoop, and has started the Massachusetts AI Coalition. And he has stood up a number of different meetups and kind of threads of folks who are building in the same space or at a similar stage. And, notionally around AI, although I will say we are all AI companies right now, whether we started as an AI company like Duckbill or otherwise. And it's just created this sense of community that I think this city, this market has really been craving. And if folks are interested, just give it a quick Google or look for it on LinkedIn. Ryan is the best possible mouthpiece for this program, and so he makes it really easy to find. And at the very first meeting of the Massachusetts AI Coalition, Governor Healy came and announced a statewide contract and relationship with OpenAI, and Sam Altman joined via video, and Maura Healy was there live. And so it really is this like exciting moment, exciting movement, and I'd encourage anyone who's interested to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of brought that what was there already under the surface.
Yes.
Above the surface, and it's now at the forefront of everybody's mindsets as well. And I think it's given a platform for so many positive things that are happening already, but will continue to go on within the space for sure.
Agree. And to be honest, there are the fact that this city is not so loud and proud about it is frankly one of the reasons so many of us are here. Because it is a culture that we love being in. It is a wildly diverse place, unfortunately not as diverse in some ways, but very diverse with regard to the kind of jobs and work people do. There's a big healthcare economy, there's a biotech economy, there's a financial services and an investing economy, and then there's this tech economy. And I think it's really nice, being out with friends or on the sidelines of a soccer game and talking to people who do all sorts of different things. And I think that kind of melting pot of different kinds of thinking is really supportive of like creative building and different kind of thinking. It's really nice to be outside of the bubble and to have some connectivity to like a little bit more of the real world that I think you get here more so than other places. So there is definitely upsides to that part of the culture. And I think we're all here for a reason. And I think these kinds of programs like what Ryan has been building, to your point, just kind of creates a forum for the community of people who have already been here and now have a place to gather.
Yeah, 100%. So over the years, what would you say is as a founder has been the best piece of advice you've received?
Oh my gosh. there's been so much of it, but I think, you know, honestly, the best thing has been don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. That the difference between founders who are, you know, their names, their household names, they have built things that we all use every day, and those who haven't is a bit of luck, a bit of, you know, things that we can, like, are out of our control. What's in our control is not giving up. And what I've learned after, you know, nearly 2 decades of working with some of the best founders on the planet, Uber, Oscar, Boston Beer, Guardant Health, and now building my own thing, is that running into roadblocks is the point. If this were easy, someone would have built it already. And so the biggest differentiation is just not giving up and getting back in the saddle, figuring out a way through the wall, way around the roadblock. And you would be amazed how far that can get you. And I think once one of my investors kind of explained that to me, it depersonalized all of these roadblocks where I thought, like, these are here because I'm doing it wrong, or because, like, I picked the wrong space to build in. It's like, no, that's just how it goes. And that's the point, is who can have the most endurance, who can have the most resilience. And when you realize that, it's like, you're not alone. It's not you. This is the game, and keep going.
Yeah, fantastic. So a couple more things before we wrap up. So apart from utilizing Duckbill, how do you personally stay sane when it comes to dealing with those highs, roadblocks, lows, etc.?
So I can remember sitting in an HBS classroom, and this guy who had been a CEO of a very successful company and was retiring and on his way out came and talked to us, and he said, you know, don't forget, when you're on your leadership journey, get enough sleep and exercise and spend time with your loved ones and eat well. And I remember, like, chuckling to myself and thinking, like, yes, when I am a retiring CEO, having delivered like 1,000x shareholder return, I too will sleep and eat well and spend time with my loved ones and all that. And I very quickly realized, just like a month or two after that, when I had stepped into this role at Uber, how important that stuff is. And how difficult it is. Frankly, it's not, you know, it's not to say that I do everything on that list well every day or even most days, but there is a big difference between leadership roles, whether founder or otherwise, and the kinds of analyst roles that I was doing before business school when I was sitting behind a spreadsheet 100 hours a week. They're draining in different ways. And when there's a team that's relying on you and your energy and your disposition, taking care of yourself becomes table stakes. And so what I recommend, and I try to do myself, is like, what are a couple of those things that are your kind of support pillars, and that you're going to commit to doing as many days as you can, whether it's getting some minimum amount of sleep or a quick meditation or a quick workout you can sneak in, even in a hotel room or something. And those things, especially when I'm feeling a little out of sorts or a little down, I realize, like, oh yeah, I've kind of gotten off my habit, and returning to them is not a nice to have, but actually a must have in keeping yourself sane so you can show up in a sane way for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So finally, do you want to just share what's next for Duckbill? Looking ahead?
So for a very long time, most people have come to Duckbill by downloading the app in their app store of choice and using Duckbill to get complex stuff off their plates and feeling that relief when you finally get this stuff done, whether it's booking complex medical appointments or, you know, negotiating with customer support to get your money back from that flight that was delayed, or whatever it may be. And what we've realized is that in an AI future, apps may not be the primary way that people interact with services like Duckbill. And so we have recently shipped an MCP, a CLI, an API, such that you can now access Duckbill's execution infrastructure through our app, but also through your AI agent of choice, through your autonomous infrastructure, whether you're using Claude or ChatGPT OpenClaw, Dreamer, any number of different AI agents out there. You can find any details about the app or those plugins on our website, duckbill.ai. But what we're finding is that more and more people are realizing that it's possible to use a combination of AI and humans to get real stuff done in the real world, and are finding a range of different ways of tapping into that execution infrastructure is serving them where they are and where they get the most value out of this help.
Fantastic. Well, one would think that competence in that compatibility between AI and those kind of tasks will only continue to grow. So, I think you guys are in a great spot because of that, Meghan. And listen, best of luck for yourself, Duckbill, moving forward. And I really appreciate you joining today. And love talking to you.
Thanks, Chris. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, take care.
You too.